The fall of Adam and Eve. An in-depth analysis of their failure in accordance with biblical welcome, my dear viewer, to this fun and informative channel on the failure of Adam. Now, before we dive into the nitty-gritty details of Adam's mistakes, let's take a moment to understand what led him to slip up in the first place. If you have not subscribed, to my channel, this is the right time to do so. Imagine a place where everything is perfect. The weather is always just right, the food tastes divine, and there are no queues at the DMV. This was the Garden of Eden, where Adam and Eve lived their best lives in blissful ignorance. But alas, all good things must come to an end. In this Master Play enterprise, we will delve into the fascinating story of Adam and Eve and their epic failure as told in the Bible. Prepare yourself for a journey through temptation, deception, and some questionable fashion choices involving fig leaves. But hey, before we dive in, let's get one thing straight. This is not your typical academic analysis. We're going to spice things up with a touch of casual banter, sarcasm, and maybe even a dad joke or two. So buckle up, because this is going to be a wild ride. Now let's rewind to the days when Adam and Eve were living their best life in the Garden of Eden. Grab your popcorn, folks. This is going to be biblical. The blissful days in the Garden of Eden, Adam and Eve. This narrative is found in the book of Genesis, specifically in chapters 2 and 3, and it's often referred to as the story of the original sin. Adam and Eve were the first humans created by God. They lived in the Garden of Eden, a lush and bountiful paradise. In this garden, they were free to enjoy the fruits of the land, tend to the garden, and have a direct, harmonious relationship with God. Their lives were perfect, with only one explicit command from God: not to eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. The blissful days in the Garden of Eden, Adam and Eve's early existence. Once upon a time, in a mystical paradise called the Garden of Eden, Adam and Eve frolicked around without a care in the world. Picture it: lush greenery, majestic animals, and a never-ending abundance of delicious fruit. It was the ultimate dream vacation spot, without any pesky tourists to spoil the tranquility. Adam, the first man on earth, roamed freely amongst the flora and fauna, blissfully unaware of everything that was about to go down. Eve, the radiant woman who stole his heart, and possibly his sanity, was his perfect companion, exploring this utopia hand in hand. Every morning Adam would rise from his slumber, probably after hitting the snooze button on his divine alarm clock a few times, to join Eve in a delightful breakfast buffet, courtesy of the heavenly garden. They didn't have to worry about dieting or counting calories, because this was the dawn of humanity, and societal beauty standards hadn't been invented yet. The duo spent their days basking in the sun, discovering new fruits and exotic plants at every corner. They had no deadlines, no bills to pay, and certainly no social media to distract them from enjoying the simple pleasures of life. Eve loved spending time with the animals, who were not only tame but also chit-chatted with her about the latest gossip in the animal kingdom. Adam, being the ever-accommodating husband, nodded along and offered his 2 cents when necessary. After all, communication is key to a successful relationship, be it with your spouse or a parrot. But oh, little did they know that trouble was lurking in the shadows, preparing to disrupt their idyllic existence. Cue the menacing music. Stay tuned as we delve deeper into their story, exploring the forbidden fruit, the cunning serpent, and the devastating consequences that befell Adam and Eve. Brace yourselves for a roller coaster ride of emotions, and hold on to your fig leaves tightly, because things are about to get interesting. Adam's responsibilities in the garden. As the first man, Adam had some pretty big responsibilities in the Garden of Eden. He was tasked with being the protector of the garden, ensuring that nothing harmful or destructive made its way in. He was also responsible for taking care of his wife, Eve, and making sure she was safe and happy. But perhaps most importantly, Adam was supposed to be the instructor of God's commands, passing on the knowledge of what was and wasn't allowed in the garden. Unfortunately, he failed pretty miserably in all 3 of these areas. The forbidden fruit, temptation at its finest. Ah, the forbidden fruit, the ultimate test of willpower, or rather the ultimate temptation that no one could resist. Let's dig deeper into this juicy subject, shall we? Once upon a time in the luscious Garden of Eden, Adam and Eve were enjoying their blissful existence. Everything was perfect. and they had everything they could ever desire, except for that one forbidden fruit. Now you might be wondering, what was so special about this fruit? Well, according to the biblical accounts, this fruit came with strict instructions: do not eat it. Of course, when you tell someone not to do something, it only makes them want to do it more. It's like placing a do not touch sign on a shiny red button. Naturally, curiosity gets the better of you. Now, who could resist the serpent's cunning persuasion? Certainly not our dear friends Adam and Eve. This sly serpent convinced them that eating the forbidden fruit would unlock a world of knowledge and enlightenment. Who needs that kind of power, right? And so, against their better judgment, or lack thereof, Adam and Eve took a bite of that alluring fruit. Cue the dramatic music. The rush of rebellion mixed with a hint of fear, a cocktail of emotions only temptation can provide. But as we all know, every action has consequences, and this one was a doozy. Shame, blame, and fig leaves became the new trends in the garden. It wasn't long before the consequences of their act caught up with them. The punishment for their little escapade? Expulsion from paradise. You see, paradise may be all fun and games until you break the only rule, and then it's game over for you. And so Adam and Eve bid farewell to their perfect utopia, forced to face a world filled with thorns and thistles, where life would be anything but a cakewalk. In a nutshell, the Forbidden Fruit episode taught us a valuable lesson. Temptation is a sneaky little devil that can lead us down the wrong path. So folks, remember to stay away from enticing fruits and serpents with questionable motives. Trust me, it never ends well. And there you have it, the sinful tale of Adam and Eve's inability to resist temptation. Stay tuned for the next chapter in their adventure as we explore the aftermath of their fatal decision. The serpent, the infamous villain of the biblical garden saga. This slithering troublemaker has been the talk of Sunday school classrooms for centuries. So what was its role in Adam and Eve's grand tumble from grace? Let's dig into it. The serpent, cunning and crafty, appeared on the scene with one motive: temptation. Armed with smooth words and a forked tongue, it persuaded Eve to take a big, juicy bite from the forbidden fruit. I mean, who can resist the allure of forbidden snacks, right? But let's not be too quick to blame the serpent entirely. After all, it wasn't exactly forcing apples down anyone's throat. It simply acted as the catalyst for Adam and Eve's momentous decision. Maybe it should have taught a class on resisting peer pressure instead. In a way, this slinky creature was more of a mischievous sidekick than a mastermind. It saw an opportunity and seized it, igniting a chain of events that would alter the course of human history. Talk about being in the right place at the wrong time. So while the serpent may have played a pivotal role, let's not forget that it was ultimately Adam and Eve's own free will that led them astray. But hey, at least we have someone to blame other than ourselves, right? Oh, the joys of finding a scapegoat. Eve, influenced by the serpent's deceptive words, began to look at the tree with longing. She saw that the fruit was not only pleasing to the eye, but also desirable for gaining wisdom, driven by curiosity and the desire for greater knowledge. And with that, dear viewer, we bid adieu to our snaky friend. Stay tuned for The Great Bite, where we witness the catastrophic decision-making skills of our beloved first couple. You won't want to miss it. The Great Bite, Adam and Eve's fatal decision. The forbidden fruit. The moment when Adam and Eve decided that following the rules was just too mainstream. They couldn't resist the allure of temptation, could they? You know, it's like that feeling when you're on a diet, but there's a freshly baked chocolate cake sitting right in front of you, begging to be devoured. It's a tough choice, isn't it? But let's get back to the juicy details of Adam and Eve's downfall. So picture this: Adam and Eve chilling in the Garden of Eden, surrounded by paradise. Life was good. They had it all: of the perfect weather, lush greenery, and an all-you-can-eat buffet of fruit. But of course there was a catch. There always is. They were strictly forbidden from nibbling on the fruit from the tree of knowledge. And as luck would have it, that was the one fruit they couldn't resist sinking their teeth into. Classic. Enter the serpent, stage left. Now this serpent wasn't your average garden variety snake. No. This serpent had a silver tongue and a master plan. It convinced Eve that taking a bite out of that forbidden fruit would unlock the magical powers of wisdom and enlightenment. Who needs Instagram filters when you have the knowledge of good and evil, right? Eve, unable to resist the allure of enlightenment, decides to give it a shot. And being the considerate partner that she is, she decides to share the experience with good old Adam. Together they take the great bite, sealing their fate and defying the one rule they were given. But as we all know, actions have consequences. This fatal decision didn't lead to a newfound enlightenment, but rather to shame, blame, and the sudden realization that nakedness doesn't quite go with fig leaves. Oops. The aftermath of their choice was a far cry from the blissful Eden they once knew. And just like that, paradise was lost. God, in all his fury, banished Adam and Eve from the Garden of Eden, leaving them with a big old case of regret. It's like getting kicked out of a party before the cake is served to a total buzzkill. So the moral of the story? Well, besides the obvious don't eat fruit from forbidden trees, it reminds us that sometimes indulging our desires can have serious consequences. But hey, at least they got a good story out of it, right? Word count, 245 words. The aftermath, shame, blame, and fig leaves. The aftermath of Adam and Eve's infamous act in the Garden of Eden was nothing short of chaotic. Shame, blame, and fig leaves were now the order of the day. As they stood there, naked and vulnerable, they suddenly felt the weight of their disobedience crashing down on them. And what did they do? Instead of taking responsibility for their actions, they did what any rational human beings would do. They started pointing fingers at each other. "Adam, it was that woman you gave me," Adam exclaimed, his voice dripping with accusation. Classic Adam move, right? Blame it on someone else. Of course, Eve wasn't one to shy away from playing the victim either. She retorted, "Oh, please, Adam. It was that serpent who tricked me into eating the fruit." Seriously, guys, blaming innocent creatures now? That serpent must be shaking his scaly head in disbelief. In their shame, Adam and Eve desperately tried to cover themselves up. So what did they reach for? Fig leaves. Yes, you heard that right, fig leaves. Because apparently that's the most fashionable cover-up to wear when you've just committed the greatest act of disobedience in human history. But as silly as their attempts were, they symbolized something profound. It showed how their innocence had been stripped away, leaving them exposed to the harsh reality of their actions. Little did they know, this was just the beginning. The consequences of their act would soon come crashing down on them, leading to their expulsion from paradise. Stay tuned to find out more about the future of humanity after Adam and Eve's colossal blunder. Trust me, it's going to be a bumpy ride. Expulsion from paradise, consequences of their act. Once Adam and Eve sank their teeth into that forbidden apple, their paradise home turned into a deserted wasteland. Talk about consequences, huh? Let's dive into the aftermath of their little fruit-induced blunder. First off, shame and blame became their new best friends. No more hanging out with friendly animals in lush gardens. It was all about covering up and pointing fingers. Suddenly, fig leaves were the hottest fashion trend in town. Who knew foliage could be so versatile? But it didn't stop there. The expulsion from paradise was the icing on the bitter cake. Adam and Eve were evicted from their splendid abode, left to face the harsh realities of the outside world. No more hassle-free living, no more unlimited fruit buffet. They had to fend for themselves in a world that just got a whole lot less friendly. And let's not forget the cherry on top of this delightful sundae of consequences: the eternal separation from God. Their act of disobedience meant no more direct line to the big guy upstairs. Now they had to rely on prayers and sacrifices to gain even a sliver of divine attention. So there you have it. Adam and Eve's little slip-up led to a life of shame, blame, and expulsion from paradise. It's like failing an open book test and getting expelled from school all at once. Ouch. Conclusion. The time has come to bid adieu to Adam and Eve's dramatic escapade in the Garden of Eden. What a ride it has been, filled with forbidden fruit, talking serpents, and fig leaf fashion trends. But before we part ways, let's recap the key takeaways from this biblical tragedy. First and foremost, Adam and Eve were living the life in the Garden of Eden, basking in eternal bliss and free food delivery. No worries, no bills, just pure paradise. But alas, temptation reared its seductive head in the form of a luscious apple, or whatever fruit it actually was. The allure of forbidden fruit, irresistible to even the most steadfast of beings. Enter our friendly neighborhood serpent who played the role of the ultimate con artist, whispering sweet nothings into Eve's ears, convincing her that taking a bite wouldn't hurt anyone. Well, we all know how that turned out. Cue the great bite that would forever alter the course of human history. After chomping down on the forbidden fruit, our dynamic duo found themselves in a predicament. Suddenly, they were aware of their nakedness and felt the soul-crushing weight of shame. It was a classic case of shouldn't have, could have, but now we're stuck dilemma. Desperate to cover their nakedness and dodge God's disapproving gaze, fig leaves became the latest fashion statement. Of course, as with any controversial deed, consequences were in order. With a heavy heart, God bid farewell to Adam and Eve, banishing them from the paradise they had grown so fond of. No more eternal bliss and bottomless buffet tables. It was time to face the harsh reality of life outside Eden's gates. In a nutshell, Adam and Eve's failure teaches us about the perils of temptation, the consequences of our actions, and the importance of always checking the dress code before leaving the house. So let's take a moment to reflect on their journey and perhaps learn a thing or two about making wise choices in our own lives. But hey, at least we can still enjoy a good apple pie without any guilt, right? And so, even though Adam and Eve played their role in introducing sin into the world, God had already promised a Redeemer who would triumph over sin and death. Jesus Christ, the second Adam, fulfilled that promise and changed the course of humanity's future. The second Adam, Jesus Christ. So Adam may have failed miserably, but God had another plan in place all along. He promised that a descendant would come from the line of Adam and would remedy the problem. And that's where Jesus Christ comes in. Jesus is the perfect second Adam who triumphed over the lies and temptations of the serpent with the word. He didn't let his bride, the church, be led astray, but laid down his life to redeem her from the clutches of death and sin. Jesus didn't allow the curse of sin to run rampant through all of creation, but healed diseases, raised the dead, and promised to one day return and redeem all of creation. He truly is the serpent crusher, bride saver, world redeemer, and Son of God. And because of Jesus, we too may become the kind of rulers and cultivators we were intended to be. So let's follow his example and triumph over the lies and temptations of the serpent with the word. Let's protect and love our spouse and the world around us. And most of all, let's place our faith in Jesus, who covered all of our sins and failures at the foot of the cross. Forgiveness and moving forward through Christ. Forgiveness and moving forward through Christ. So Adam failed, Eve failed, and we all fail too. But the good news is that Jesus paid it all. He covered the sins and failures of Adam, Eve, and every one of us. As believers in Jesus, we can forgive ourselves and others and move forward despite our failures, because they're remembered no more at the foot of the cross. It's important to understand that forgiving ourselves and others doesn't mean minimizing the gravity of what we've done wrong. Forgiveness acknowledges the severity of the offense and the hurt it caused, but also recognizes that we can release our anger and bitterness because of Christ's sacrifice. Moving forward in faith means trusting that God can use even the worst situations for our ultimate good and His glory. So whenever we feel defeated and hopeless, we can remind ourselves that Jesus is our redemption. And with that reminder, we can live in the freedom that comes from knowing that our failures are not the end of the story. Conclusion. In summary, the story of Adam and Eve's failure in the Bible is a tale of temptation, disobedience, and the profound consequences it brought upon humanity. This narrative has had a profound impact on Christian theology and philosophy, as it is seen as the source of original sin, which necessitated the need for salvation through Jesus Christ. God's plan of redemption was already in place, and through Jesus Christ, the second Adam, we have the hope of forgiveness and moving forward in faith. Let us forgive ourselves and others and strive to become the rulers and cultivators we were intended to be. We hope you found this exploration of their story informative and thought-provoking. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more biblical stories and in-depth explorations. Thank you for watching.